way they are. I wish they were like, bistro height seats. But welcome everybody to the Crypto Cyber Panel, Web3 Cyber Panel here. How's Cryptopia going so far? Yeah? Really this is, I think this is pretty dang cool for all of us to be involved in this. Kind of a momentous sort of thing with a lot of pioneering happening in Utah right now. It's cool to see community come around this. I know there's been, a fair amount of crypto and blockchain community in Utah for a long time. It's definitely super cool to see Scott Paul and a whole lot of other people and now big business start to get behind it and look at, what's happening in the space and get real and put Utah on the map in the space. So thanks for being part of the community, part of the journey. Hopefully you're gathering some great information today. Hopefully it's been valuable and fun and you made really great connections. I know I've had a good time so far. Anyways, so let's see. I'm a guy who's got to cheat and look at my notes. So my name's Earl Foote, by the way. I am founder, CEO of Nexus IT. We are an outsourced cybersecurity compliance and IT support firm based here in northern Utah, and we service a nationwide footprint. Garrett, what's up, man? Thanks for being here. We, along with many of us in this space, are starting to figure out how to deal with cyber in Web3, and we're learning ourselves, but we're also solving problems in that space on the fly. Certainly it's the Wild West, it's a new frontier, and all of us are innovating, I think, at breakneck speed, and we're all, figuring out things just as we go, because that's just the nature of what's going on right now. How many of you are currently in cyber in some capacity? All right, cool. We've got some cyber geeks in here. How many are currently in crypto or Web3? Okay, very good. All right. Well, good crowd. We appreciate you being here today. So I did want to mention real quick as well, if you're not aware, there is an after party this evening down at Twist, downtown Salt Lake. I am in a band that is made up of tech execs, all tech execs and founders. We are playing the after party. We're going to tear the roof off of Twist tonight. I think we start about 6:30, so if you can make it down there, join us. You do have to have tickets to get in or be on the list. If you don't have tickets, go to the registration booth, and I don't know if Sarah's still got any. I know it was tight on what was left, but I would imagine they would give you some discounts if you wanted to go check it out. All right, so.
And their band's good. They're awesome.
Yeah, we have fun. We're amateurs, but it'll be a lot of fun. It'll be a lot of fun. So I want to recognize, welcome, and thank this amazing panel. These people are all really dear friends to me. Yuri and I have just met. Chad and I have known each other for some time at distance, but we've just met. Yeah. These are people that have been an important part of my journey and our journey, particularly over recent years. All of these people are some of the brightest minds in cyber and in crypto and Web3 in Utah, and Yuri out of Austin. By the way, Yuri is over the data science division, the AI data science division at SoftServe. If you're not familiar with SoftServe, they are a global development company. They have about 13,000 developers worldwide, and about 9,000 of those are Ukrainian. Some of Yuri's colleagues right now are literally cyber warriors fighting against Russia, and SoftServe has been doing a lot of really great work to help their colleagues, and their families in Ukraine, to help get them out of the country. And many of Yuri's colleagues, and Sergey is back here. Sergey's with SoftServe as well, also one of our Ukrainian buddies. And Sergey's here in Utah. many of their colleagues are actually on the front lines as well. They went to war by their own choice to go fight for their country and their families and their liberty, and that's, yeah. Hey, sorry, I've had a soft heart today for some reason. I don't know why. Although I've had some really good interactions with a few really great people today, and that's probably what spawned it. Anyways, just wanted to recognize, our Ukrainian brothers here with us today. SoftServe has they have a nonprofit organization called Open Eyes. If you just Google SoftServe Open Eyes, they are doing probably more than almost anybody right now in relief efforts. I think last I knew they'd pumped $15 million of relief efforts into Ukraine. You can go to that URL. You can donate. You can donate $5. Anything helps. Medical supplies, food. Again, helping people get out of the country, or even military supplies, whatever's needed. Right? Excuse me, Sergey. Yeah. All right. Let's get started. I think the first thing we should do here is do quick intros across the panel. You're looking at some really amazing people today, and some people that I think you're going to learn a lot from. You're gonna like, and hopefully people that you connect with, because they are innovators, pioneers in the space right now, and people who are tracking this space very, very close. So let's start with Chad. Here you go, buddy.
Sure. I'm excited to see this many people in this room. I know there is a lot of other awesome things going on outside, so thank you all for being here. I think they called me up here to add a little spice to the panel. I'm trying to out crazy Scott. It's pretty hard to do, but I'll try my best. I am the founder and CEO of Heroic.com, and been in the cybersecurity space my entire professional career, and have been in blockchain for about since 2012. Came across the Bitcoin white paper and fell in love, and I just love this industry. Primarily in cybersecurity, we help protect large organizations like healthcare companies and other companies against breaches, but I'm passionate about a couple things. One of those is cybersecurity. Second one is cryptocurrency. And the third one is triathlon. So if you like triathlons, come and see me afterwards.
All right, so hello everyone. Errol just gave me a great introduction, so it's for me, for SoftServe, so I really appreciate it. Thank you very much, and I'm really proud to be here. Again, my name is Yuri Milonov. I'm Director of AI and Data Science Practice with SoftServe. We have nothing to do with ice cream, right? We make software. So yeah, and what is special about us is that we specialize in applying those cutting-edge technologies such as AI, robotics, IoT, big data analytics, you name it, right? And we use them to solve complex business problems across many different industries, right? So we focus on the problems, and then we find the best technology, right, that can achieve the best results. So yeah, I'm happy to follow up on that, and I don't want to do any more advertisements. So I'm really proud to be here. Thanks for having me, and yeah, look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. I am Tara Anderson. I'm managing partner for Framework Security. We have offices in Austin, Los Angeles, Salt Lake City now. Just a little bit of a backstory. I formerly used to work for Earl, so that's kind of cool and fun. Another fun little tidbit is SoftServe's former head of cybersecurity is my business partner, Jerry Sanchez, out of LA. So we connect that way. And just a little, you don't know this yet, but sometimes we call SoftServe hard serve because we had an event, a lunch and learn around the Utah House Bill 80, that's now the Affirmative Defenses Act, and Corey Christensen of SoftServe and his team, they actually brought exceptionally hard ice cream to that event, like people's fillings were falling out. So I just wanted to share that little tidbit. If anyone wasn't aware of SoftServe, great global development company, obviously passionate hearts, cyber war heroes right now in Ukraine. Love them to pieces. Work a lot with this team. We all work together, and in the cybersecurity space, obviously, and technology. But right now, we're working to solve the challenges around Web3, cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. Looking at it through the lens of cybersecurity is important right now. It's challenging. I don't think we're all going to have the same perspective on it. I think we're going to have difference of opinions, and we're all just trying to figure this out together. So thanks for being here and for your patience as we try to start solving these problems.
Well done, Tara. Hi, guys. I'm Greg Johnson with WebCheck Security, and we do digital forensics, ethical hacking or penetration testing, and assessments. I love this group. We do work with Armstrong Teasdale here, and Romain will introduce himself to you. And we do work with Framework Security. We're doing a large identity access management project in the oil and gas industry with SoftServe right now. And I've actually worked for Chad. He is the coolest guy ever. And he knew about blockchain and crypto probably before most of you in this room did. So he's always ahead of the curve. And Earl is a great, great partner of ours. So I could talk for that for hours, but we won't. Great to be here, folks. Thanks.
Good afternoon, everyone. Romain Marshall. I'm with Armstrong Teasdale. It's a national and somewhat slightly international law firm. We have offices in Ireland and London too. And where I come at this space is from the legal standpoint. So as many of you know, when something bad happens with people's data or trade secrets or intellectual property, sometimes laws get triggered and lawsuits happen, investigations by multiple federal agencies happen, and that's where I get involved. And so lately, the last year and a half, I would say, I've been getting retained before bad things happen to help people just be ready and have some of the governance structures in place to just be able to say to their business partners, their employees, their consumers, yeah, we know there's bad people out there, and we're doing everything we can to be ready for that. And so we're going to be talking about those basic concepts at a much higher level now with this new Web3 space that I'm going to say at least most of you probably understand that space a lot more than I do, but I'm going to bring in some legal concepts when Earl gets us going to try and bridge the gap.
Thank you, Romain. Thank you. Which, by the way, Romain is our corporate counsel, our cybersecurity compliance counsel for Nexus IT. Romain and his team are legitimately one of the foremost cybersecurity teams, legal teams in the entire nation. They are pioneers and probably know the space more than anybody. And Romain works for a lot of household names that a lot of us know. He and his team are they're big time players, and not just that, just amazing, cool people. However, we have a big problem with the panel today. I have one rule if you're going to be on my panel. Okay, 2 rules. You can't show up my beard, and you can't show up my drip. And both Romain and Chad have shown up my drip, and Yuri's shown up my beard. So I'm going to step out, and Chad's going to take over. No. So, all right. How many of you think that Web3, crypto can't be hacked? Nobody? That's good. Okay, you've followed the news. You may be surprised, but those of us that are in this profession, we actually get that a lot, and even from really established, mature blockchain Web3 type of organizations that say, look, we're all decentralized. Like, security is inherent. It's impervious. Nobody can touch this stuff, right? I just want to share some stats, and before I do that, I do want to mention that, look, all of us are cyber educators. None of us, it's not about FUD, all right? It's all about empowerment and enablement through education, talking about the real world threat landscape, because you cannot fight a foe you do not know. And so we're here to talk about that foe and what it means for you and your businesses, whether you're a crypto consumer or whether you're a business in the Web3 space, and the things you got to be thinking about, right? So just some quick stats this year. In 2022, through the end of April, there has been a combined $1.6 billion in crypto stolen. That's not counting NFTs, which Romain's going to tell us a little bit more about those later. In April alone, there were $370 million in crypto stolen. In the last 30 days, there have been 31 crypto hacks, including Beanstalk, Fay Protocol, and Saddle. That was a combined $90 million loss. Those are two entities that have recently merged. Combined $90 million loss there. Deus, Bored Ape Yacht Club. This is going to be a fun one. Romain's going to talk a little bit about. I think everybody knows Bored Ape, I think. Let's see. Most common attack vectors right now, protocol hacks, direct phishing, spear phishing, and we can talk more about what those mean. I know some of you know that, some may not. By the way, some interesting things that are happening. Fay, Fay on their side, they were hacked for 10 million. Saddle was hacked for 80 million. Fay offered the hacker a $10 million no questions asked bounty if the hacker would return the money. Nothing's happened with that yet, but however, in 2021, the hacker Mr. White Hat, he returned all $600 million he stole from the Poly network when they asked for the money back. This year, $3 million was stolen from the multi-chain. The hacker offered to return 80% of it, and has returned some to date to some of the those that were the crypto was stolen from. So, all that being said, let's get started here with the discussion. Let's start out with Romain down there. Romain, tell us a little bit about what you're seeing in the real-world cyber landscape as it relates to Web3 and crypto. What's taking place? What are you and your team dealing with? I realize, attorney-client privilege and the whole thing, so we got to be careful with that stuff. But you can talk about the stuff that's really happening. You just can't name names. So let's hear about it.
Okay, I'll start with one type of attack that we're all familiar with because it's in the news all the time, that I would call a fringe Web3 cyber attack, and that is ransomware. Now, that type of attack isn't happening on Web3 type of companies or entities or on those platforms, but the payment structure is housed within Web3. So in other words, when these hackers deploy the ransomware note, it says pay the ransom to this site where you can pay with Bitcoin. So I've been involved with ransomware for about 3 to 4 years. But fast forward to, say, the last 4 to 5 months, I've become involved in more direct types of Web3 attacks that trigger some legal obligations that stem from phishing. So every Monday morning, I will read the weekend news. I have a few feeds that talk about who got hacked over the weekend. And I think just this last weekend, there were two that you may know. An artist by the name of Beeple had his NFTs stolen. They total amount is probably in the millions. And then an actor named Seth Green. I don't know if any of you know of him. He was about to release a movie involving one of his NFTs. He was a Bored Ape owner. And the Bored Ape that was going to be the star, he commercialized the rights to his NFT, was stolen. And he knows where it is, and this is the difference between the normal types of thefts. Because it's on the blockchain, you know where it's all going, or you know the handle, or you know where the stolen goods are ending up. You don't know the identity unless the criminal was weak enough to let there be artifacts that can be tied back to a person, but it's a handle. And then you see on the blockchain where your digital asset is located. So we're seeing a lot of those types of victims, very frustrated. They've paid a lot of money. And maybe in a few minutes I'll talk about Bored Apes and some people we're trying to help get those Bored Apes back. But these are garden variety type of exploits that have been happening for years. Now they're just easier to do because they can hide in plain sight because there's anonymity in the way they do things.
Cool, thank you, Romain. So I'm just going to grab this because I know we have some people tuned in. But we're going right to Greg next door there. So Greg, we prefaced a little bit talking about protocol and interface attacks. Maybe you can expound a little bit on how interface with the blockchain presents critical attack vectors and what that looks like, and what our audience should know about that.
Sure, thanks, Earl. First, I wanted to show you a diagram. You probably can't see all of it, but for those of you that are really familiar with blockchain, you'll recognize this as the blockchain stack, and it's very different than the current TCP/IP, HTTPS stack that we have on the internet. But there are components of that. Obviously, you have to connect to, using a Tor protocol or a peer-to-peer protocol, and they're all hackable. And if nobody's controlling a certificate authority, what does that mean? And are corporations, for example, going to adopt this technology? And who's going to control the cybersecurity on the other end? Well, there are a lot of things that need to be worked out. I think the reality is this is a technology that's going to evolve and merge into mainstream technologies. And let's talk for a minute about where we are today. So, for example, does anybody own Ethereum in here? Okay, cool. So I bought some Ethereum this past year. As you've all probably seen, it's not doing so well right now. I think anybody lost more than $1,400 and wants to admit it, or am I the only stupid one? Oh, I'm glad I've got stupid brethren and sisters in here. But the reality is it'll probably come back. It's tended to bounce with the stock market. I don't want to get off on that. But the point is, how did you access that? I did mine through my SoFi account, right? And most of us, to interface with the mainstream Web3 technologies and blockchain today, we're going through the technology that we have today. And that implies things that make it vulnerable. Well, it's vulnerable even without that. But let's say, for example, that I don't have the MFA turned on my SoFi account. And there are other things that I need to do, then that makes it immediately theftable, doesn't it? The biggest thing still remains social engineering. So another couple of stats is that the Verizon data breach report suggested that for 2021 you had 84% of all breaches, data breaches that were reported involved a people element. And then of that, 60% of all the data breaches involved credentials. And so that still remains a problem. Have any of you received a phishing email message? Hey, this is America First Credit Union. There's been fraudulent activity on your account, right? Most of you are smiling because that's been on the rise lately. I get one every other day now. And if you yield those credentials, sometimes we use similar passwords across accounts in Web 2.0 today, don't we, to interface into our cryptocurrency. And Chad may have some cool stuff to say about this, but the reality is that some of the same problems that are plaguing us are going to continue to plague us as we evolve and move towards Web 3.0. You look at the transport layer. So as most of you know, SSL, for example, is now hackable. And so if you're not using, I believe it's TLS 1.2, and as that evolves in your transport, then it can be hacked. And so who's going to control that? There are a lot of questions about Web3, and I don't believe they're insurmountable. But some of these things are going to have to be worked out before mainstream corporate America starts adopting Web3 as a platform. Back to you, Earl.
Thank you, Greg. Looks like you guys just sat in order of our questions, so it's perfect. It's perfect. We're going to go to Tara here. Yeah, right. Which, by the way, before I go further, I encourage you while you're here, if you're LinkedIn users, go connect to all these people right now. Connect to myself. Everybody here is a thought leader. Everybody here is publishing almost daily content on these topics. We publish things to help the community, to help you and your organizations and your ventures stay safe, help you stay abreast of what's going on. I know Romain and his team do a lot of really great blog articles. We do it at Nexus IT as well. So Tara, you've kind of honed in on, which by the way, let's just say there are few females. Ma'am, you're a female in cyber. Tara's a badass female in cyber as well. So there are a few.
Super happy to be here.
Yeah, right.
It's actually Brooklyn Dodgers from 47.
Yeah. These ladies are pioneers. I want to recognize that. We need more of them in our space. You know, we're happy to have Tara. She's definitely a pioneer right now. You know, Tara, as you and Framework Security, you know, really kind of focusing on the space of cyber and compliance prep, defense, response, right? Those types of things. Tell us a little bit more about what you're kind of seeing right now and what you're doing to prep, particularly Web3, crypto-based ventures, DeFi ventures, you know, for potential eventualities that are existing in the space, how you're helping them mitigate risk, and what that all looks like maybe.
Great, thank you. I appreciate it. We do very similar work to WebCheck Security. We partner with them on a lot of opportunities, work with some companies as far as incident response, as you mentioned. And so with that role, we have customers that we are already working with, obviously, that have cybersecurity needs. And so where it starts with us is making sure that they're already cyber secure, that their cyber hygiene is already as good as we can make it. And so that's really where it starts. It starts with preparing their C-suite to know what to do if they're breached. So prepping the C-suite on down, creating a culture of readiness inside an organization, tabletop drills couldn't be more important. It's the reaction that matters the most, and you have to be timely. So we're just preparing them mentally, but also through programs and policies, again, from their team on down. Cybersecurity awareness training is important to us. We try to instill that on all of our clients. And why I'm talking about that is because I'm very cautious to not put the cart before the horse. There's obviously a lot of appeal with Web3, cryptocurrency, new strategies around Bitcoin. Many companies are going in that direction. AMC is accepting cryptocurrency as payment. Tesla, Amazon, Walmart just posted a job for a cryptocurrency expert strategy product in Bitcoin. So a lot of companies are going that way. And you mentioned FUD. A lot of our clients have FUD. Should I jump in there? What should I do? Should I start offering this? Should I productize around this space? And our advice is, again, to be prepared on a basic level now. You know, before you jump into that, understand what your risk tolerance is. Have a healthy institutional buffer. You know, start with 5% of your core business and make sure that you have the appetite to lose that money and that revenue. With certain companies, we look at the opportunities in the space. If you see high transactional fees, such as Amazon pays millions of dollars in cash transaction fees, so credit card fees, merchant processing fees. If that is something that we can offset by accepting cryptocurrency, we're going to advise our client to do that, but we're going to make sure their overall cybersecurity posture is buttoned up first. We suggest you start small. Maybe gamify it, offer rewards through Bitcoin, through NFTs. You know, start with some small things that aren't going to affect your bottom line, and just make sure that if you were to lose whatever you put into that product segment in your organization, that you can recuperate if it's completely lost. And then we start looking at what can be exploited, how you're vulnerable. And we do the same typical cybersecurity procedures as we would for any organization: penetration testing, internal and external. As we talked about, you could still be phished or spearphished. Your end users, your employees, can still be a means for for a cyber criminal to exploit you. So again, it's very similar to where we're at with Web 2 right now, but the key takeaway would be to make sure that you have the tolerance for it, to keep a sound organizational buffer as far as like what you have still within traditional institutions with Web 2. When you feel that you're secure, and maybe a firm like ours can let you know that you are secure from a cybersecurity perspective, where things are at with traditional currency, with Web 2.0, then maybe start exploring it. But make sure that you have the tolerance to lose it all should it happen.
Very, very good advice. Thank you so much, Tara. Thank you. Okay, the crypto night has landed, so we can start the session here. Thank you so much for joining us here. Fantastic get up, man. Love it. All right, let's talk to, before I actually go to Yuri's question, I did want to mention that we're going to try to do some Q&A here at the end. So if you have questions that are coming up, as this dialogue happens, jot it down on your phone or something, or make a mental note. We'll come back around and try to get to those at the end. I will try to leave, if possible, about 10 minutes. We do want to get to some more. Right now we're talking a little bit more about what the threat landscape looks like. We want to get to more proactive things, what you can do about it. And I realize that panelists have already been giving you some tools, but we want to get to some more tools. We definitely want to get to the legal and compliance side a little bit more. Yuri, your space is very interesting. AI and data science. So maybe help us understand a little bit about how AI and data science can help us identify threats, and not only identify those, but potentially solve those, and how on-chain data solutions can help build out more cyber resilience in this space. Maybe can you help us out there?
Right. So thank you, Earl. So let me maybe start with sort of making a step back and demystifying the term AI and maybe machine learning, so what it is. And let's think of it as just another way of writing software, which it essentially is. So in our traditional software engineering, right, when we approach a problem, right, we have a well-defined set of rules that we hard code, right, and then we sort of use those rules to validate whether this email is a phishing email or this transaction is fraudulent, right? But obviously, we have to admit our intelligence is limited, right? So we can use this sort of manual approach, right, and hard code each and every possible fraudulent case or each and every threat. We need something smarter, right? So that's where AI and machine learning comes into play. So we use the technology and we use data. And the data is a source of knowledge for us, right? We use that knowledge to essentially extract the rules to then apply and use them. So that's essentially the role how we use, and that's the way how we use machine learning to solve software problems. Now let's think of crypto and cybersecurity, right? So let's try to make this thought experiment, right? How would you define a phishing email, right? How many rules would you come up with, right? And whether that set of rules would be extensive, right? Moreover, those bad guys, they evolve, they try to hide. So even if you use, let's say, some sort of backup words or generally analyzing the words that are there, they will use different words, right? They will play with you, right? So we need something smarter, something that evolves with a nature or with a process, with the time, right? It's something that can naturally sort of learn from its experience. So that's essentially how we can use AI for this problem. But we need data, right? We need some sort of knowledge to extract those rules. And luckily, in blockchain and crypto, we have huge advantage of public on-chain data. We can use that data, right? And we can extract some knowledge from that. But any AI or machine learning solution is as good, as smart as the data that was used, right? It's not a magic wand, right? And obviously, on-chain data is limited, right? It's limited, doesn't define everything that happens. And most of the crime and most of most of those kind of threats, they happen off-chain, right? So we need something that can leverage both off-chain and on-chain data to identify potential threats, right? So that's the hardest part, right? How do we get data? Smart way to start collecting data right away, right? So especially given the cost of storing the data on S3 or whatever is quite small. So it's better to over-collect than under-collect, right? You will then figure out which data is useful, which is not, right? So try to collect as much data as possible and try to focus on the data that describes the behavior, right? Something that is dynamic, right? Because you can use static data. Demographics data will never help you identify those type of threats, right? You need something that is dynamic, something that shows the type of behavior in time. And for that, you obviously need time series data. You need to collect the data from different touch points that are spread in time, and that might right give you enough signal or information that then you would can use to actually train your machine learning model to address your specific challenge. Luckily, the entry level to this industry is much lower than it used to be when I started my career, right? So right now you have plenty of those managed off-the-shelf services that are available from Google, AWS, Azure, you name it, right? That will help you actually jumpstart your journey, right? You can leverage a lot from them to start building your artificial intelligence that is based on your data, but obviously, at some point, even those capabilities, they are limited. You will need to go deeper. You need to run more custom experiments, use more sophisticated models, and that's maybe when software can help you with that. Again, no more advertisement. So yeah, essentially the role of AI and machine learning in this industry is to complement our intelligence, not replace it, but complement it by leveraging the data that is available, right, and be able to analyze the problem for all those multiple dimensions, something that no one in this room and in the world can do, right? We just limited in terms of our intelligence and our compute. So yeah, this is essentially how we see how we already use AI and machine learning to identify different threats in different related to security aspects in crypto and many other industries. Back to you, Eric.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. For those of you that are in cyber, you know, this evolution that we've watched even over the last 5 years or so of the role of AI and behavioral analytics and machine learning in cyber has been, you know, pretty interesting. And certainly we've watched what we refer to as endpoint security agents, you know, back in the day, antivirus, right? When I got into this industry, I'm old, guys. When I got into this industry, you know, if you had Norton antivirus, you were in good shape, right? That was a good cybersecurity program. You know, we've seen in recent years, certainly what now we call next-gen endpoint security, you know, significantly leverage these technologies and totally expect, you know, AI and machine learning and everything to play a big role in the Web3 cyberspace moving forward. And it's cool to see Yuri and his team innovating and actually building products around that. You know, the guy we're going to go to now actually has probably been dabbling and pioneering in this blockchain Web3 cyberspace longer than most, probably longer than any of us on this panel at the moment. And so I'm excited to hear Chad's thoughts a little bit about you know, what are you and your team seeing in the space, and what do you recommend in terms of ways for Web3 based ventures and consumers to increase their security and to protect themselves?
You know, it's interesting. Even though we have this new generation of technology with Web3, the attacks that we're seeing, and we see attacks every single day. I know everybody on this panel does. The attacks are the same attacks we're seeing in Web 2 businesses or Web 1 businesses. The Bored Ape and Beeple's attack, that was phishing. And anybody in here have any Axies with Axie Infinity? So Axie Infinity, there we go, we got one. Was a game that had NFTs, and you'd earn money by playing this game. We actually had almost 20 people in the Philippines that every single day they would get on and play this game. And we would pay for the NFT, and they would get 50% of whatever they made. They got hacked at the start of the year, $600 million, and it was just a server hack. So they were able to get into the server, they were able to get credentials and go through. And so the attacks are the exact same type of attacks that we're seeing in regular businesses. They're just... The difference today is before, when you would hack, and I myself, I'm a certified ethical hacker. I consider myself a hacker. I'm nowhere near as dangerous as I used to be. If I could pick one job that I could do instead of being a CEO, I'd be in a basement in my underwear with the lights down low and hacking people. That is what I love. Now with the Captain America jacket. That is what I love. That is my happy place. I don't get to. No. Yes. Greg has seen many things. Greg, here's a shout out to Greg, and I'm going to get off track. I have ADD. You're going to find that out really quickly. Greg worked with me a couple years back. One of the greatest people I've ever worked with. One of the most professional and just great all around people. He was a huge part of our business. And when he said he worked for me, that's not true. He worked with me, hand in hand, and we built some cool stuff, and then we parted ways. Greg is a good guy. So coming back to this, the attacks that we're seeing are traditional attacks. It's crazy. I've been talking to a lot of Web3 companies, and if I drop the name, you guys would all know them because they're in this building. I'm not saying anybody specific, but the level of security that they're implementing is very low. And the reality is, if we are building technologies, by a raise of hands, how many people here are building Web3 technologies or in the space of building? Awesome. That's awesome. We've got to understand that we are building basically banks. We are building technologies that are handling people's money, and we need to take extra special care that is protected. Now, how do we protect it? This room seems like a fairly advanced room. So I usually go basic because I never really know how advanced people are. Greg mentioned the Verizon security report. And the Verizon security report says over 60% of attacks today are from compromised credentials. 60% of successful hacks are from compromised credentials. That's when you put your password in and on Twitter, and Twitter gets hacked, and somebody gets the database, and they crack all the hashes, and now they have your password. And now they just spread it out, or myairbags.com, or whatever random website that we sign up for. The majority come from that. Also the phishing side. Now, people are reusing passwords. How many, you don't have to raise your hands, but how many people in here are reusing passwords? There we go. There's one brave soul. Yeah, most of us are, or most of us have. So that's the first thing I always tell people: stop reusing passwords. Stop it. Don't do it. You should have one password. One. And that's your password to your password manager. Okay, I want to give something actionable right now. This information can sit, you guys are all in Web3. There's a reason why you're in this room, is because you're interested in making money and helping with Web3. This can save you millions of dollars, because I know by experience, by not doing it right. If you don't have a password manager on your phone right now, go to lastpass.com or onepassword.com and download it. Literally right now. The most actionable thing that we can do, or we can teach our family, because if any of us are in cybersecurity, every single person in our family is always asking us, and they're never listening to us. But the one thing that is, just download a password manager. And there's the second thing. Boom. And there was the second thing. Say you got the first thing, stop reusing passwords. Well, this is the third thing. Stop reusing passwords. Second, use a password manager. Third thing, two-factor for any important accounts that you guys have. Obviously, all your banking accounts. And I'm going to do a fourth, and then I'll end it there because I feel like I'm talking too much. But, so, yeah, use that two-factor on important accounts. I now use it on almost everything. Almost everything that I have, I use it. And it costs me 10 minutes a day, every day, going through all that stuff and putting it in. But as a cybersecurity guy, and as someone that has publicly said, I'm in crypto, and I do the vast 95% of my wealth is in crypto, I get hacked constantly, especially when I go and travel. I was just on a cruise last week, and I had 2 targeted attacks with me. There's very few people in my life that knew I was on a cruise. There's like 5. And I had 2 targeted attacks against me. It's crazy. I don't know who. Yeah, I don't know who was attacking me, but somebody, and maybe it was just some random attack, but it was pretty sophisticated. So, do those things. Fourth thing, I can't remember what the fourth thing was, so I'm going to pass it on.
Thank you, Chad. I actually recently had a very interesting, as I boarded a plane, a very interesting targeted Bluetooth attack, which I wish I had documented it. I wish I'd had the wherewithal to document it and take screenshots and stuff in the moment. But man, it was crazy. I put on my Sennheiser Bluetooth headset, and I got this pop-up that said something to the effect of, do you want a pair? But it said, I didn't notice, but Earl's, and then it was Sony something or other. And I screwed up because I didn't notice it wasn't Sennheiser EPC or whatever, 660, and I hit it. And then suddenly I get this prompt, so and so, or so and so wants to take control of your contacts, right? Wants to download your contacts, and I'm like, holy shit, what just happened? I'm a cybersecurity guy. This shit should not be happening, right? So I disabled my Bluetooth on the spot, and didn't re-enable it for like 15 minutes until we were in the air, and then I started doing some more reconnaissance and stuff, trying to figure out what was going on. I'm pretty sure, yeah, like somebody, in the jetway and was doing some crazy little Bluetooth hacking, right? It was funky. Anyways, so by the way, tall gentleman in the back of the room that's reusing passwords. Do you also share those passwords in open text in your Slack channel with your development team? You'd be surprised how often all of us get brought into scenarios, and we do the forensic work, and open text passwords, plain text passwords in Slack channels that are posted across entire development teams. And I'm not talking about development teams of 3. I'm talking about development teams of 400 and 500 people, right? Don't do it. Okay, so we're going to rapid fire. We've got about 10 minutes left. We're going to go back down the aisle here, and maybe if each of you can just take 1 minute with these questions. I want to leave a couple more minutes for Romain at the end to talk about legal and regulation and compliance, and then maybe there's time for some questions. If not, I imagine most of these fine people are willing to stick around and talk to you for a few minutes. I've got to go as fast as I can to go set up with the band down at Twist. So I'm going to roll as quick as I can out of here. But Yuri, tell us a little bit about how automating human intelligence poses additional risks to the decentralized and secure blockchain ecosystem, and what can we do to mitigate those risks?
Great question. So if we outsource, if we allow some artificial intelligence to make decisions for us, right? Obviously, we need that intelligence to comply to the same rules, right? To the same principle that we have in blockchain, right? It should be secure, it should be decentralized, right? It should be trustful, right? And that requires a lot of compute, right? AI and machine learning is quite compute intensive, and sometimes you need very specialized type of compute, such as GPU, and that's obviously a kind of an obvious point of failure, right? If you centralize all your compute, right, you obviously you allow someone to get into and impact that intelligence that you are building. So what we are, I think, is still missing in the industry, and I see some great projects, some great infrastructure building up, is the decentralized compute that will support AI and machine learning. Of course, there is Akash, there is SingularityNet. You can look them up. They're great, right? But it's not on the same level as we could do in a centralized way as AWS. So that's a huge important aspect that we need in order for us to be efficient in this blockchain, because so far the application that I've seen of AI were rather centralized. So essentially it's a centralized AI that controls decentralized blockchain, but that's obviously has to be changed. So yeah, that is missing. I hope that we will have it quite soon, and that will significantly accelerate all the development in this field. So yeah, that's, I would say, the most important ingredient that we're missing right now.
Very cool. Thank you, Yuri. All right, so we're going to go to Tara really quick. Tara, by the way, if you go follow her story, I have a soft place in my heart for Tara. No. It's all you. Tara is quite an inspiring person with a really great story. She splits time with her husband and that family in Washington State, and her family here, her kids here in Salt Lake in Utah. She's one hell of a mom, one hell of a wife, but she's also one hell of a leader and entrepreneur. And so,
Stop it.
deep respect. And Tara started her career in banking and went into venture, and then she saw this space, actually joined us at Nexus IT, and started her journey in the cybersecurity space. So tell us a little bit. Now we're seeing DeFi pop up, right? And I know this is This is a total Wild West right now. I've got giddy, by the way. Anybody else got giddy? Yeah, all right. Yeah. Oh, which, by the way, damn it, I can't put a QR code up. I want to put a QR code on that thing so you could all go scan my QR code and boost me up in the line. But
Buy in and boost up the price for us today.
yeah, exactly. That would be really nice. Yeah. So, did anybody notice one of the primary title sponsors of Cryptopia is Mountain America Credit Union? All right. Whoever thought in such a short time period we would start seeing institutional lenders and banks trying to figure out how to get into this space, trying to figure out their own plays in it, right? Mountain America is there, and it's not just Mountain America, like Merrill Lynch and Chase and all these banks were trying to start to figure this thing out, right? So with a background in banking, Tara, and now having a transition in your career into cybersecurity, tell us a little bit about your thoughts on DeFi, your feelings about it. You know, you were in traditional banking, and now we're talking about decentralized finance, right? Putting the power in the hands of the people, right? Tell us about it.
It scares the shit out of me, actually. It really does. You know, I got into banking 2 weeks after high school, so 18 years old. That's what I chose to do with my life. I did that because I respected and trusted the institutions. I thought it would make me credible. I thought I would learn a lot from the space, and I did. I'm not denying that at all. I actually built a house on Banker Drive. Like, I love banking. I loved it to pieces. You know, I went through the Great Recession in 07, 08. For a period of time, worked for J.P. Morgan Chase and Jamie Dimon himself, and got spit on at stores. My kids wondered why, you know, the checkers wouldn't make eye contact or talk to us anymore. We were the bad guys for a while. And this whole process reminds me of a conversation I had with a gentleman on the airplane, and I wish I would have exchanged a card or got to know him. But he had his laptop up, and I was naturally curious. And at that time, I just left banking. I was in the startup world, actually working for Scott Paul, another startup, back in 2013. And he's telling me all about how he's going to, you know, make this platform so people in emerging countries can exchange money, and you know, like somebody living here and working in the United States can send money back to their family and their families in Mexico, and they wouldn't have to pay Western Union fees or wire transfer fees. I'm sure many of you know that per every $100, a family would have to pay $5 to $30 to send that money. So he's telling me about this, and all I'm thinking in the back of my mind is, but what about fraud? What about money laundering and human trafficking and drug trafficking? Because bankers are trained to be good stewards of the data. We thought that we were the front lines and the eyes and the ears of the country, seeing what was going on kind of behind the curtains. You know, if it was our job to dissect if there was unusual transactions, follow the money trail, understand what was going on, prevent an attack if we could against our country. You know, this is post 9/11, so you know we actually felt like we were on the front lines of preventing a lot of terrorism, crimes, and he started talking to me about the crimes that the banks are committing, and it was hard to deny. I actually did a little research on it, and every major institution has paid millions, if not billions of dollars in fines for drug trafficking, money laundering, helping cartels in Mexico, fraud, internal fraud, external fraud, and actually assisting criminals. The reporting that we did on the front lines, actually is 97% false positives. So there are a lot of invasion in privacy. Banking is not perfect, and that's something that I've learned. And I don't think that DeFi, as it is right now, is the actual answer. There needs to be compliance, there needs to be regulations and governance. But I sure as hell hope to be part of that, to decentralize it, but to do it safely, so we can pull from what we've learned from the past, not only in 2007, 2008, but back in 80-33, we were failing in the same way. Back then, though, bankers were actually hung if they made a mistake. Now, nothing quite happens to the bankers. So I'd like to see some changes. I'd like to see it decentralized, but also, again, with some data governance and some oversight.
Very cool. Thank you for that insight, Tara. All right, gentleman in the black shirt here. What's your name? Justin, you mentioned MFA. Everybody know what MFA is? MFA, 2FA, dual factor authentication, all that kind of stuff. Okay, you all have to do it to get into your bank accounts now or other various accounts. Hopefully, put it on your Slack channel, buddy. Greg, let's maybe have you give a little bit of an update on the role of MFA in all this, and is it the end all be all, or is it not?
It's not, but it's a layer of cybersecurity. And as my business partner, Jeff, back there is falling asleep, would tell you, cybersecurity is multi-layered and multifaceted. So MFA is not going to be the silver bullet. There is not a silver bullet in cybersecurity. There are many layers of it. But, it's important that we enable the MFA. Chad talked about this. One of you brethren mentioned that, crypto brethren. But the important thing is that MFA is evolving. The reason it's not called 2FA anymore is because there are now multi-factors available. If you've got an advanced smartphone, my iPad, I use touchpad biometrics. In fact, I realized when I was flying on the airplane, Earl, that when I tried to get into Salesforce, I couldn't because it wanted to send a text message to my phone. And that's kind of problematic. I realize you can log into your T-Mobile or whatever, but every carrier doesn't have that. So I enabled the biometric on my MacBook Air, right? And so now when I go into Salesforce, so if you guys want to steal my data, you're going to have to cut my thumb off, okay? And that's how I get into it. Careful, Tara. So we're going to have to evolve the way we use MFA. We're going to have to start using biometrics. And I'm just going to finish with this thought, and then we want to leave the rest for Romain here. And that is that cyber is going to become a big data analytics problem. And this is not my idea. We've adopted a technology through a partner. And I'm kind of keying off something that Yuri said here, that telemetry and data out there. If you look at the Web3 stack, the current, how many of you know who Arctic Wolf is, for example? Right? They're a SIM, they're a SOC as a service, security operations center, and there's 100 other companies like them. They're all keyed for certain protocol stacks on the network right now. Well, these technologies aren't geared for RLPZ and the MIST and the parity browser and part of the Web3 stack. And so it's going to be hard to get ahead of that. But as you start looking at the data, and you have algorithms that can find the anomalies and then help you ask the right questions. So anyway, I won't get into that right now, but being able to extrapolate to a metadata layer and then run a query and quickly find anomalies and then find the bad actors based on that is going to be of critical importance. If anybody wants to talk about that afterwards, I will. But I think it's Romain's turn.
All right.
Let's go, Google.
Just,
Romain.
yeah.
What's happening in legal regulation,
Okay,
compliance
sure.
in this Web3 space, and what the future holds?
Okay, so we've got maybe one more minute.
Yeah.
So I mentioned that I will typically defend companies when they have had an incident or advise them how they should respond appropriately. And then sometimes I have to defend them in lawsuits or investigations. But now and then a case comes along where I want to do the suing, where I want to act like a regulator. And we have such a case right now. Do any of you know what OpenSea is? OpenSea is the marketplace for NFTs. It's kind of like what Coinbase is for cryptocurrencies. Do any of you know who the Bored Ape Yacht Club is? Bored Ape Yacht Club is an NFT, very, very exclusive, very popular, very expensive. The floor price on a Bored Ape is about $250,000. There's been one, I think, that sold for about $3.5 million. Well, in February, I had a client who had 3 of them stolen. And he was phished, and then he thought he was dealing with a legitimate purchaser or someone who wanted to buy his apes or trade them so that he could buy and sell others. And it was a hacker. And they made off with his Bored Apes, and my client called OpenSea, and he called Bored Ape for help. And they didn't give any. Weeks later, actually, Bored Ape reached out to him and said, you know what, we're sorry to hear what happened to you and that your 3 apes are now missing. We know people over at OpenSea and we'll move you up the queue so you get help. But then OpenSea didn't respond. So we sued them. And we sued them for the same reasons that someone who walks into a Walmart and slips on a slippery floor when there's been no warning sign and it's the middle of the day when there's more people, when it's rush hour, sues. The same theory, negligence. And the theory here as it relates to Web3 is, if I use your platform and if I pay you a lot of money for your NFTs, I think you have a duty to protect what I'm trying to do within your community. I think you have a duty to try and make it safe and to try and make it secure. And so we've sued them. My guy lost $1 million worth of NFTs, and he's lost also the commercialization rights, which is going to sound crazy, but at least we think those are about worth about $5 million. And so we've sued all of those entities under this negligence theory. You had a duty to have some kind of security. And the response is, thus far, no, we didn't. There's no law that says we had to. Oh, and by the way, it's decentralized. The village will look after its own. We don't have to. And I disagree with that. And they're making 2.5% off all of them. OpenSea and Bored Ape, 2.5% off every transaction, whether it's by thieves or not, whether they know they're by thieves, which they do, or not. And so we think there's a duty in them having to offer security, warning the people, and these are sophisticated people who are losing everything, and then also they know where these people are. They can freeze assets, they can do something that pressures some kind of a return to the customer who's losing things. So because this is so unregulated, I'm having to act like a regulator. I think this will settle because I had a similar case against Coinbase, and it did. And people don't want these things to drag on for months or years. We don't either. But because and until regulation and new laws come and set guidelines or guardrails around these innovative platforms, people are going to keep suffering. So is regulation coming? Absolutely. We're seeing an uptick in just, at this point, posturing by legislatures. We have what we call crypto cops are emerging. The SEC has formed a unit. The FBI has formed a unit. DOJ has formed a unit. So that means that's good news, in my view, as long as they don't overdo it and squelch the creativity that's inherent in these communities. But that's where things are at right now. Early days, very early days. eBay and Amazon, fraud used to be rife on their platforms. And they used to say, we're just a platform. We don't have to do anything about it. But they did, eventually. And usually it's because they lost in court, or a regulator like the FTC said, you're making all this money, you better keep it and make it secure. So I hope that's helpful, and willing to talk to anyone who may have victims who need help.
All right. Romaine's quite a guy. This guy's a serious innovator in the legal space when it comes to, again, crypto and this Web3 space. It takes...
To the extent that a lawyer can ever be innovative, I might be.
And besides that, he was a rugby player.
Yeah.
He'd kick all of our asses in here. There's no doubt. As I travel the country and go to conferences and things, literally like attorneys that I meet, other cyber professionals, that I meet are like, do you know that Romaine Marshall guy in Salt Lake? Can you introduce me to that guy? Literally, people are looking at him and his team. You got to have, excuse the French, you got to have a set to go sue, Coinbase, right? Yeah. Yeah. Good guy. Sorry if I overstep the bounds. I tend to do that. I'm getting into rock and roll hour here. So, look, we're over time. I know these people are wonderful people. They'd be happy to talk to you some more. I know they're starting to do giveaways. Mallory from our team, our director of marketing. I know she's got some cool stuff for you all out there. So I encourage you, let's get out there as quick as possible. Look these people up, talk to them, ask them some more questions. Definitely follow them all. You want to find out what Romain and his team are doing in the legal and regulation and compliance space here, and stay abreast of it, because it will play a role, whether you're an investor or a consumer in crypto, or whether you're a Web3 play. It's going to play a role for you, and what we're all doing in cyber is going to play a role as well. Let's see. If you can't make the VIP party tonight, my band's playing again at Silicon Slopes Startfest. June 24th, big barbecue. They're expecting 3,000-4,000 people. Lehigh at the Silicon Slopes campus, or just south of it there. I think it's 11 to 1, so come hang out at that. Come have a good time. Outside of that, why don't we give our panel a huge round of applause. Did just want to mention the gentleman you saw come in right towards the end. That's Martin Miranda. This is his event venue. This is his team running all the AV and all the technology behind it. They're amazing people. Let's see, Event Stack is their company. Go follow them as well. They've got a lot of cool stuff going on. So thank you, everybody. We so much appreciate you being here and listening to us.